Welcome to ASMR Ghost Stories. If you enjoy getting just a little bit scared while having your brain massaged through soft spoken or whispered videos, welcome. All my stories have something to do with either the paranormal, urban legends, something just a little bit scary. So before you put your headphones on and lay back and relax, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because I do upload twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. So we're going to go ahead and dive into today's story. So today's topic is about the babysitter and the man upstairs. I remember babysitting myself, and it's always in the back of my mind, especially if I babysat in the evenings, that man's gonna call and tell me he's upstairs. Yeah, it didn't happen, thank goodness. Okay, let's get into today's legend. So the legend details a teenage girl who is watching television at night while babysitting after the children have been put to bed upstairs. The phone rings. The unknown caller tells her to check the children. The girl dismisses the call, but the anonymous caller dials back several times, and the girl becomes increasingly frightened. Eventually, the babysitter calls the police, who inform her they will trace the next call. After the stranger calls again, the police return her call, advising her to leave immediately. She evacuates the home, and the police meet her to explain that the calls were coming from inside the house, and that the unidentified prowler was calling her after red rumming the children upstairs. Now, this adaptation, if you will, was taken from a red rum, if you will, in 1950 of a teenage babysitter named Janet Chrisman. And we'll get into that story in just a second. So there are other versions that have come from this urban legend. Here's a list of a few. In more child-friendly versions, the caller turns out to be either one of the children or an elder sibling who decided to scare the babysitter as a prank, and they get told off by the police. Another is the babysitter was also red-rummed, and also the babysitter rescues the children and the prowler is arrested by the police. Also, there's, while being taken away by the police, the prowler whispers or says out loud, "See you soon," to the babysitter. In some other versions, when the prowler calls the babysitter, he just makes scary noises like giggling or heavy breathing. Also, in the version when the operator says that the calls have been coming from the same house, the phone goes quiet, and when the operator asks if the babysitter is still there, all they get is the same scary noises, meaning the babysitter has already been red-rummed. Or the children are with the babysitter while watching television. The prowler starts phoning them, saying that he'll be with them in a decreasing amount of time. Then after they get the news that the calls are coming from inside the house. They hear a door upstairs opening, and then the sounds of footsteps heading toward their room. This version can be found in the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books. Or there's years later, the babysitter is now an adult and has a family of her own. One evening, she and her husband go to have dinner out while a babysitter looks after the children. The evening is going well until a waiter approaches their table and says that there is a phone call for her. She then answers the phone and hears, "Did you check the children?" This is an ending that appears in some of the movie versions. Also, there is the police inform one of the children that they found the prowler under the kid's bed holding a weapon. Now, it also goes on to state about the cloud doll or statue version. So in an entirely separate version, or as a completely different urban legend as the clown statue or the clown doll, in some versions as rather than be tormented by menacing phone calls, the babysitter is unnerved by what she assumes is a hideous, life-sized statue of a clown in the corner of the room. When the mother or father of the children she is caring for calls home to check in, the babysitter asks if she can cover the clown statue with the blanket. The parent informs the babysitter they do not own a clown statue. The statue was really a red rummer with dwarfism that dresses in a clown costume to not be noticed by police. The red rummer then attacks and red rums the girl before she can escape. Due to the nature of this version, its own variants of the story have one or more of these details. The murderous small person pretends to be a clown doll instead of a clown statue. Or, in several popular versions, the room itself can be the parent's bedroom rather than the living room. Or, the babysitter gets slowly annoyed by the clown statue sometime later, before calling the parents and getting their permission to cover the clown statue up, that is. Or she walks up and down the stairs as a means to avoid seeing the statue. The babysitter uses a sheet or something else to cover up the clown statue. In some versions, the story takes place in Newport Beach, California, where the supposed event happens. In a few versions, the intruder is a perverted homeless person or a vengeful ghost clown who died in the family's home instead of a red rummus, small serial killer, or mentally ill patient. Stay tuned to the end of this video and I'll give a synopsis of the movie When the Stranger Calls from 2006. If you haven't seen the movie, you can stop the video after the next story, which is the truth behind the babysitter and the man upstairs urban legend. And the red rum of this teenage babysitter 67 years ago, when the story was written back in 2017, says it also remains unsolved. The call is coming from inside the house. These 8 words have been uttered by countless children and mark one of the most popular urban legends of all time. Children have been telling this story, sometimes called The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, for decades at slumber parties, and swearing they know the sister of the person it happened to. This legend, unfortunately, isn't just a tale made up to frighten your childhood BFF. It's rooted in an unsolved red rum case from 1950. For those who haven't heard this legend in a decade or more, here's a quick refresher. It's best read in a spooky voice with a flashlight in front of your face. Jane was babysitting for the Millers for the first time. The Millers' kids, Bobby and Tiffany, were already asleep when Jane arrived. She was doing her homework at the kitchen table when the phone rang. "Hello?" Jane asked, but heard only heavy breathing in return. She hung up the phone and walked to the front door to make sure it was locked. The phone rang again. Jane picked up and said, "Hello?" "Have you checked the children?" said a low voice from the other end. Confused, Jane asked who was calling, but the caller was gone. 15 minutes later, the phone rang again, and the caller asked the same question. "Have you checked the children?" Jane knew she should go upstairs to check on Bobby and Tiffany, but her legs were too weak to safely climb the stairs. She called the Millers several times, but couldn't get a hold of them. Next, Jane called the operator to see if it was one of her classmates trying to frighten her. The operator asked her to hold while she traced the calls. When the operator came back on the line, she told Jane, "Get out of the house now. I'll send the police. The calls are coming from inside the house." The truth is more horrifying, so be warned. The origin of the babysitter and the man upstairs story is believed to be a red rum that happened in the town of Columbia, Missouri in March 1950. 8th grader Janet Christman had decided to skip a party with her classmates to babysit for a local family named the Romacks. The 3-year-old boy she was babysitting was already asleep when she arrived. "It was kind of an eerie night," recalled Janet's friend Carol decades later in the documentary Killer Legends. "I was also babysitting and I just felt uneasy," she said. Reports say that night in Columbia, the temperature was below freezing, it was raining and sleeting. Little is known about what happens next, but here's what we do know. Janet Christman was, I'll spell it out because I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say it, Rabed, and strangled to red rum unalivement with an iron cord. And I apologize, I did not mean for that to sound funny. I have the utmost condolences and respect for this story. I'll continue. The killer was likely someone she knew. Janet tried to call the police, but all they heard on the other end of the line was desperate screams, telling them to come quick. Police were unable to trace the call. Soon after Janet's phone call to the police, Mrs. Romack tried calling to check in on how the night was. She received a busy signal, but thought little of it. It was only when the Romacks came home that they realized what the busy tone had probably been. The phone still off the hook, while nearby Janet lay unalived. Despite the urban legend, there's no hard evidence that Janet's Red Rummer placed any calls to the Romex phone on the night of the Red Rum, either from inside or outside the house. Sorry to debunk the scariest line from the horror story, but them's the facts. The Romex found Janet's body on their living room floor at 1:30 a.m. when they came home. Signs of a violent struggle spread across 2 rooms. Thankfully, their 3-year-old kid was safe. He slept through the whole ordeal. Local police questioned dozens of men in their search to find the Red Rummer. The most likely suspect was Robert Mueller, a friend of the Romax. Mr. Romack testified that Mueller, 27, had commented on Janet's well-developed form. Miss Romack said Mueller had run his hand across her dress 2 days before the Red Rum. Mueller was also known to carry around a mechanical pencil that matched puncture wounds that police found on Janet's body. But police and the Boone County Sheriff's Department bungled the case against Mueller, and he was never charged in the Red Rum. To this day, the case remains unsolved. We may never know what happened to 13-year-old Janet Chrisman. And now for the plot for When a Stranger Calls 2006 film. A local sheriff enters a home where multiple Red Rums have been committed. The victims are 3 children and their babysitter, all Red Rummed brutally by an intruder using his bare hands. In Colorado, 125 miles away from the crime scene, 16-year-old Jill Johnson is on her way to babysit for the wealthy Mandrakis family as punishment for exceeding her cell phone minutes. When she arrives, Mrs. Mandrakis shows her around and tells her about their live-in housemaid, Rosa. A long time after the parents leave, Jill begins to receive obscene phone calls from someone who, most of the time, does not say anything and then hangs up. She initially believes it's her friends playing a prank, but when she contacts them, they deny it. While the Mandrakis' 2 children are asleep upstairs, Jill is visited by her friend Tiffany, but in fear of getting into further trouble, Jill asks her to leave. While returning to her car, Tiffany is ambushed by an unseen intruder. Jill receives a call from the person indicating he can see her. Alarmed, she calls the police, who tell her they can trace the calls if she is able to keep him on the line for at least 60 seconds. While waiting for the phone to ring, Jill sees a shadow moving in the guest house. Believing it is the Mandrakis' son back from college, she goes to investigate, but finds the guest house empty. While in the guest house, the phone rings, and it is the same caller. This only confirms her fear that he is watching her. She keeps him on the phone so the call can be traced, only to remember he called the wrong line. Jill looks out the window and sees a light has been turned on at the Mandrakis' house. Believing Rosa is home, Jill searches for her but finds no one is there. The phone rings again and the caller remains quiet on the other end. Jill manages to keep him on the line for a minute so the call can be traced. Jill then hears the shower running in the maid's room, but upon checking, the bathroom is empty. The police tell her the calls are coming from inside the house. Horrified, Jill finds Tiffany's body on the bathroom floor and flees. Jill goes to the children, who are already hiding in their playroom. She looks up and sees the intruder in the loft. They all escape into the greenhouse and hide. Jill discovers Rose's dead body, can I say that, under the water. The intruder enters and searches the greenhouse. Jill manages to lock him inside, but he breaks out and attacks her. During the altercation, Jill manages to stab the assailant's hand into the hardwood floor with a fireplace poker before rushing out of the house into the arms of a police officer. The assailant is arrested. Days later, while recovering in the hospital, Jill awakens to a phone ringing. She gets out of bed, and while looking at her reflection in the mirror, the assailant appears behind her and grabs her. She begins to shriek hysterically, waking from her hallucination as the doctors and her father desperately try to stop her frantic panicking. And I think that is the end of the story. So there you have it. Simple and sweet. Have you ever had any instances where you were babysitting and it was just a little bit freaky? Something scary. Maybe you were babysitting in a dark wooded area, desolate, all alone, that sort of thing. And that's when I would say, nope, I'm out of here. So, do you have any stories of your own, or do you know of any other urban legends that are somewhat similar to this? Thank you all for watching, and if you have any suggestions for a future episode, then comment below, or you can also email me. Also, hit that subscribe button and the like button so I do know that you are enjoying these types of videos. And I also post on Mondays and Thursdays, so hit that notification bell. Until then, you know what to do.